Hi, I'm Erin Marcus, former corporate executive turned entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business. Welcome to the Ready Yet podcast. We're excited to bring you more than 100 episodes of interviews and insights designed to help entrepreneurs get the financial and emotional freedom they need in order to build a business and a life they're proud of. All right. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. My guest today, Anna Nelson, is going to, deep dive into my brain and tell me everything that I'm terrible at right now, everything that I'm great at. We've been having a fun conversation, so I can't wait to share this with people around strength and how to really recognize what you're good at and use it, right? And use that information. I'll let you give yourself a little introduction here. And then I forgot to tell you how I got introduced into the world of personality profiles and things. You're going to laugh. So tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do first.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, Erin. This is super fun. I am a coach. I work with high achieving individuals. I've worked with entrepreneurs. I've worked with mid-level executives at like Fortune 10, Fortune 50 companies. I have worked with housewives and my neighbors' children, all in the effort to help each of those individuals gain more clarity on what it is, what direction they should go in based on what it is they are naturally good at. And so I've done that for 4 years now, but before that, I worked in the corporate world. I have worked in financial services. I've worked retail. I had, in order to pursue a dream, working in Patagonia's corporate headquarters. So I left a good paying job to go fold t-shirts and network my way up to the top, which I was offered a job there. And I have worked in marketing. I've also been unemployed. I lost my job during the recession, so I was unemployed for 14 months. I'm a certified professional bra maker. I have had different business ideas along the way, but I have always wanted to work for myself doing my own thing. And it took me an extremely long time before I figured out that my superpower is helping other people discover their superpowers. And so that is what I do currently. So I live in...
Listening to you, it's so similar to me where I've done all these crazy different things and I left great jobs to do something on my own. I had things work out, things not work out, this crazy wide variety of experiences. And yet when you get to where you're supposed to be, you're like, okay, that wide range of experiences is what allows me to really relate to such a wide variety of people.
Yes.
And do what it is that I am able to do now.
Yes. And do I wish I had figured out and recognized the red thread throughout my life sooner? Like absolutely, yes. But then at the same time, the amount of people I have worked with where I've been able to, I worked with someone not too long ago where his job was just eliminated. And I had to, I got to sit with him in that kind of shock of his new reality. And so by saying, yeah, this really stinks, I have been there and it is awful. Right. And so pulling from that for sure. And obviously there are good situations too, where I've been like, yes, it's really scary, but you can totally do it. Like, which as a coach, you can't take someone further than you have or have been willing to go yourself. So all of that experience definitely lends to my credibility, I guess, in a one-on-one conversation with someone.
Well, so getting back to this personality profile concept, I was introduced in college to personality profiles. I have a degree in journalism and I have a minor in criminal justice because I used to be a reporter. And with criminal justice, there were non-government types of classes that we also took. And one of them was criminal psychology.
Okay.
And my criminal psychology professor had at one point in his career been the psychiatrist at Sing Sing who did the intake testing of all the inmates so that they could divide up the pods by personality to prevent violence as much as they could.
Wow.
That was his job. And so he gave us all of these prisoner intake personality profiles. And then we would look at our results and then we would compare them to the sociopaths that end up in solitary confinement. And what I learned is we are all really just one or two Scantron answers away. It's that narrow a margin in these profiles between normal functioning
Mm,
human and
mm.
massive challenges. And so you get a lot less judgmental very quickly, right? You get very, very non-judgmental very quickly. But that was my introduction. And I was just intrigued because I've always been intrigued by why do people do what they do, not from a, again, not from a judgmental way, but from a
Yeah.
curiosity way standpoint. And I think as an entrepreneur, understanding myself and being able to pick up on cues that help me understand
Mm,
others
mhm.
has been, from an educational standpoint, like one of the most beneficial pieces of knowledge that then more than anything that I would have ever expected.
Yeah, and I don't think that we are really taught how valuable self-awareness actually is
Seriously.
until, you get out from the educational system, whether you went to college or not, whether you got a PhD or not, anything, you get into whatever workforce where you're trying to pay your bills. So then you're like, is this all that life has for me? And you start thinking, well, do I like flipping burgers? Do I like filing? Do I like driving an Uber? Do I like any of this? So then you start seeking out, well, what would I like? And that's when you start thinking like, who am I and what am
Who
I
am I,
good
right?
at?
The more
Exactly.
esoteric, the big picture version. But yeah, I think,
Exactly.
but it's so true. Like we don't give any thought as to why we like what we like. Why do
Mm-hmm.
we like doing what it is that we like doing? Whatever it is. Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but there's neuroscience behind it.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, so I was specifically built my coaching practice around one-on-one conversations. And I have been told by numerous smart people or asked like, well, what if you did group coaching? You could easily get hired by these corporations, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, because my wheelhouse is one-on-one. I don't mind coaching a group or a team, but only after I have worked individually with each person. And so, but I know why that's my wheelhouse. And when I was a kid in elementary school, I had a friend, her name was Danielle. And every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on the dot, I would call her to see if she could play. And every Saturday. And normally the answer was no, she has to do homework. I did not get very good grades in school. I did not like doing homework. I liked to hang out with friends, but one on one. And so, even from a young age, it was one on one hanging out with a friend that I just loved. But I didn't appreciate that that was actually how I was intrinsically wired and automatically showing up in the world. And so then when it was finally like, what do I really like doing? And I love meeting someone for coffee, one person for coffee, an intimate conversation. So that's what I do now.
How you
Coaching is
built your
different.
business.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
and
But my business is set up to have these one-on-one conversations.
and what's so important, and this is a big cornerstone of my content pillars and my value system, is create. One of the beauties of being an entrepreneur is you can create your business however it is you want and what
Mm-hmm.
works best for you.
Yeah.
Now, does it come with potential limits? Sure. But who cares?
Right.
Caveat, my caveat to the entire thing, and you've done it, is creating the business you want intentionally as opposed to the business you settle for
Mm,
because you can't figure out how to do it. There's a
mm.
very big difference between I'm only doing one-on-one in this case because I can't figure out how to leverage my
Right.
time.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I'm doing one-on-one because that is the best use of my ability and service to my clients.
Yeah. Yeah.
And right. And you have to have that self-awareness to know which is. And then the other important piece about being so aware of what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you like, what you don't like, is really, I think, for business owners in marketing,
Mm-hmm.
because what makes me crazy is when people try to sell one size fits all. I call them insta tactics. Here, just do this one
Yep.
thing.
Yep. Yep.
And it's not that the tactic is necessarily a bad tactic, but if it doesn't fit your business model and your strengths and
Yep.
your weaknesses and what you're able to do and what you're willing to do, it isn't going to work.
Right.
It isn't going to work if there's not alignment in so many different places, especially with your natural strengths.
Yeah. Well, even think about this podcast. If it's just me as the example, oh, okay, well, this could be a marketing opportunity for me. And guess what? It's a one-on-one conversation.
One-on-one conversation. And for me, an open, but I'm a big fan of being transparent about the business, my business, so that it helps my clients and my audience. Social media is huge, right?
Mm.
Social media is absolutely huge. And I have a presence on social media, but it's because I don't have to sit there and do all of it. It's my
Mm.
content, and then a
Mhm.
writer turns it
Yeah.
into
Yep.
things. It's all comes out of my original content. But one of the challenges that I have had this past year is I was trying to use certain strategies that were going to be very, very, and I didn't completely know this going in, but they were more heavily dependent on massive social media involvement. And
Interesting.
I have not done a good job at it. I haven't done a good
Interesting.
job at it.
Yeah.
And I always thought, how weird is that? Because I love being on stage in front of people. I love having these conversations. I love having my podcast. I am certainly not scared to go shout
Talk to
whatever it
people.
is I'm
Yep.
shouting, right? And yet, I always attributed my lack of liking social media to the fact that I was such a juvenile delinquent in my childhood. I spent the first 20 years of my life making sure nobody knew what we were doing.
That's funny. That's really,
That I'm like, it's so antithesis to everything I grew up knowing was important, meaning anonymity. Nobody should know the details of this, right? But from what you're talking about and from the conversation we had a little bit before we hit record, when I shared my strength finders with you, it was so obvious to you. We were like, yeah, well, no wonder you hate that. You don't have any of the boxes in that, right?
right.
That's not you.
I think it's also interesting. There's like, so there's your background, so your life experience contributing to, in this case, your social media, like,
Not an aversion. I'm very ambivalent.
yeah, I can't, I mean, it's not, yeah, exactly. But then since you showed me what your strengths are, you have 5 of your top 10 strengths in the influencing domain. So people high in the influencing domain, I can see why a coaching conversation or being on a stage in person maybe is more life-giving,
Yes.
because you can see someone else's reaction.
Yes.
Even in this conversation,
Oh my,
you can be like, "Oh, she responded well to what I just said. I'll continue on."
it's the
And you
first
need
thing
that
I say.
response.
Yes. And I do need the response. It's the first thing I say to people when I'm doing webinars, when I'm doing free events, when I do talks for SCORE through the Small Business
Oh, okay, yeah,
Association.
yeah, yeah. Yep.
I do that as a
Yep.
give back. And I'm forever saying, come on camera. I'm a human. I talk to humans. I don't
Yeah.
talk to little
Yes.
black boxes with your
Yes.
name on it.
Yep.
And
Yep.
if I don't have feedback, I don't know if anybody cares about what I'm talking about.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I need that interpersonal for me to stay engaged.
Yes. And then, so on the flip side, because we have determined that we are opposite of each other,
Just hysterical.
I had a podcast. It, like, you could still go on to Spotify or whatever and look it up. I made it up to 59 episodes.
Nice.
And I did like combinations of some interviews because I'm like, well, I like talking to people, so I'll talk to a person. And then mostly just myself. And I'm like, why am I just talking into the void? Like, who cares what I'm saying? This doesn't matter. But the second someone is in front of me and they're like, I don't know what I should do, I'm like, okay, let's
Oh,
talk
here,
about
how
it. What
can
are
I
you?
help? Right.
And so I'm like, maybe
Totally.
podcasting isn't necessarily the greatest thing for me. Maybe writing where someone can think about something for themselves if I ask a question at the end of what I said or in an email newsletter. Now, because I know writing. So this year I'm going to start, I want to focus more on writing and see
Mhm.
how that is. But it feels different and it feels a little bit more like me versus doing a podcast by myself. But I do like talking on stage, but it's more from an encouraging standpoint versus I'm going to get you all to rally around this one thing, it's different, but it's still life-giving.
And I think understanding that in your business is so important because one of the things I said, I don't think it was this year, I think it was the year before, I refused to do the bang my head against the wall version of doing business.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I don't expect it to be easy in that everything works and everything's good.
Sure,
That's not what I
exactly.
expect.
Yep.
But if my if I have a physical negative visceral
Yep.
reaction to the idea of having to do something, I probably shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. Okay. So I exactly. And I think sometimes in the online coaching business, helping other people create their own businesses world, I think a lot of times people take that as like, well, Erin, that's a mindset thing.
And you have to learn. You have to it's
Exactly.
100% like the way that I describe this, you'll appreciate this. The way that I describe these situations, throwing good money after bad. Did I quit too soon
Yep.
or did I try, right? Is this something I just need to get over or is this not my shtick? And I talk about needing to put bumpers in your gutters so that you don't fall off either edge.
Mm,
Right? So creating a litmus test for yourself on either side
yep.
so that I know, okay, this feeling is fear, but this feeling is I don't want to do that because it
Yes.
sucks and I hate it.
Yes.
Like, how do you, right? And learning. And the only way to figure these out for yourself is by doing things.
Absolutely. For sure. And there's definitely that. And then paying attention really closely and being honest with yourself of like, is this fear right now? Like, am I terrified or am I just not wired to do this? And
Not
I
wired to.
think one where if you're a coach and I know someone's strengths and I am able to talk through that with someone, but for myself, even like it's extremely difficult for me to start something from scratch. It's extremely difficult to try something new. My number one strength on the Clifton Strengths Assessment profile is that I'm maximizer. A maximizer is someone who likes to help others take action and they like to take something that's good and take it to the next level. Good to great. That's what I like to do. And now I love doing that with people. I never see people as a problem. I'm like, oh my gosh, you have so many things going for you.
Right.
Now let's get you to the next level. But internally on the back end of my business, if I'm like, maybe I'll start a blog this year, or maybe I'll do this, I will perseverate and overthink about things and it's horrible. And it took me the longest time to realize it's not my mindset. It's just my strengths don't work well. And so then I give myself permission to maybe take a little bit longer than I probably should be taking if I was like an activator type person, or I'll reward myself. So I know you can call your friend Sarah after you do this thing that you do not want to do. Because I'll talk to anyone for 8 hours a day and think I'm productive. I
Right.
don't like doing tasks. So, okay, how do I trick myself into doing what I need to do and reward
And
myself for something I love?
it's so important to understand these things about yourself. And to give and to surround yourself with complementary team members,
Oh, yeah.
right? And to surround like I have somebody on my team and what she'll say to me is, can I reflect? Because she's dissimilar from me. And she'll say, can I reflect back to you what I'm hearing you say? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And she's done this several times. And she's been like, You don't like this, you don't like this, you don't like this, you don't like this, you don't like this. Why are you doing this? And I said, well, we're not anymore. Thank you for explaining that. After you said that, we're just not. And I will let go of something
Yeah.
instantly, instantly. But to your point, in the moment, when I'm trying to accomplish something, when I'm trying to follow people and people's advice, who have walked a path who achieved something I want to achieve.
Mm,
And they've done it XYZ way. And they're trying to share with me what XYZ way is. You have to reach a place in your confidence where you can take what works for you out of that,
mm-hmm,
right? Take the pieces that work for you and let go of the rest.
mm-hmm.
And just let go of the rest. And it was funny, like one of my aha moments with this was when I received feedback from a coach, and it's a coach that I still work with. I've gotten a ton of value from her, but she was looking at this one thing I was doing and told me, well, you need to be more aggressive. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, have we met? Like, nobody, there's nothing in my behavior that anyone has ever said, Erin, you need to be more aggressive. But it was a really great moment for me to go, why would she think that when it's so
Mm, mm.
right? And because the path worked for her in this
Yeah,
way
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it wasn't going. So now, again, getting to the point where you can take all this great information that she's helped me with and like these things over here, you know what? That's stuff that isn't going to work for me. So I'll just do the stuff that does.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like if we're all at the salad bar of creating our own businesses, not everyone is going to have croutons in it, and not
Right.
everyone is going to have cheese or lettuce, and that is okay. And I think the biggest thing, because we talk so much about how can you be your most authentic self, blah blah blah, be authentic, blah, be you. And and we say it, but we do not know how to own that. And we do not know who our authentic selves are. We do not know who we are. And it takes a lot of determination and perseverance and persistence and work and effort and self-reflection in order to truly own, this is who I am, this is what I love doing, this is what I'm good at doing, this is what I want to do, and these are the types of people I need to surround myself in order for me to keep pursuing what I want to accomplish. And I'm going to own it. And it takes
Well,
a huge, that takes a strong person.
well, it also, what I've learned is it takes an immense amount of vigilance.
Yes,
You
yeah.
it you can't
Mm.
stop doing it.
Yes,
Like one
which is
of the
so
way
disappointing.
it's right. Oh my God. Like one of the words I've had to completely let go of is this idea of fixing. I can't fix my mindset. I can't fix my calendar. I certainly can't fix my email inbox. And the reason I can't fix it or solve it is because two things. Number one, it kind of implies it's broken, which is
Uh,
not a great
yep,
perspective. But
yep.
two, it also implies that there's going to be this magical date after which I'll never have this problem again.
Yes, yes.
And that's not how that works because I promise you, if I'm not on top of my inbox, my calendar, or my mindset, they fall apart real fast.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think also realizing, especially in the earlier stages of building a business, like how much you learn because you're putting things out there. You see how people respond or don't respond, and then you'll make like, maybe I should tweak it, or you learn something else about yourself. Then you're like, maybe I should do that. Like I told you the other day, I'm kind of slightly rebranding myself. My process and framework all the same, but I'm like, actually, I think I need to be saying this about myself
Mm-hmm.
and giving myself permission to change while also I gave myself permission to talk about myself in a certain way. Then I went to this one event and I was like, you know what? This doesn't feel like who I am. Like, this isn't, no, I need to change this. And that's what I'm doing. And guess what? I'm still alive. I'm not suffering. Is it work? Yes. Did it cost me money to work with someone to help me? Yes, it did. But guess what? I'm really excited for this new direction on how I'm
And that
branding
I
myself.
think is what we're looking for in your business. And that is what my COO reflects back to me is if I'm not excited about something and I start looking at it with dread and
Mm,
responsibility instead of excitement and creation,
yeah.
you're not going to, it's not just, you might do the work, but you'll often do it in a, check the box, scratch it off your list approach,
Yeah.
as opposed to the energy where you're so lit up about it, people can't help but be excited about it with you.
Yeah. Well, and that speaks to one, people like if I was like, hey, Erin, I love working with entrepreneurs. Yeah. And I'm not that confident in, I mean, early on when
Oh,
we
yeah, it's
just
brutal,
got
right?
certified and I'm like, it'll be $20 to work with me. Is that okay? Oh, only 15. Okay. Like
Yeah,
when you understand yourself and I will change your life. What do you want? I will help get you there. Now, all of a sudden, you're like, oh, maybe she will help me. Like,
right.
okay, I want to work with that person. And, oh, you just said something else that I really
Well,
wanted
and
to
I
respond
tell
to.
people it's, a lot of people are scared of public speaking. They're scared of being too self-promotional. But the truth is, if you can't talk about what you do with confidence, you could be the best photographer. It has nothing to do with coaching, maybe. You could be the best photographer in the world.
Yeah.
But if you can't get up and talk about how good your photography is confidently, people will assume you're a bad photographer. And it's not fair,
Exactly.
but it is
Yeah.
true, right? It's like
Exactly.
it's not your fault, but that is your problem.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. But it takes a while to get there because there
Yeah.
is the whole, and okay, this is what I was going to say. There's the one owning and being confident in knowing why you can be confident in telling someone, I am going to be the best wedding photographer for you. And here's why,
Yeah.
right? Like that, when you understand why you are different than someone else and the
Mm-hmm.
positives of that, you can sell yourself totally different. But then also, if you're an entrepreneur, I created a business because my first husband, he traveled for a living. And my job at the time was horrible. And I thought, well, why can't I just create an online business to travel with him? So, and then I learned about coaching and all of that. And so my whole business is so that I don't have to get a quote 9 to 5 job. So I can travel whenever I want. Our first conversation, I wasn't even in my
You
own
right.
home. I was
Right.
somewhere else. And that's how I set up my business. And so owning this is what I want and how
Yes.
do my strengths lend to that? And how do I need to massage and create my business so that it fits that and be okay with it?
And then it's one of those things where it's so simple, it's just not easy. It's really
Exactly,
so simple.
exactly,
It's so
exactly.
simple and so straightforward. It's this mixture of where is the intersection between the thing that you are absolutely great at, the thing you absolutely love doing, and the thing that helps people? Where is that intersection? And the more you can just play at that intersection, the easier everything is. The problem is, what are we up against? Neuroscience, subconscious programming, limiting beliefs, being susceptible to everybody else's highlight reel on Instagram. Like you are literally up against your brain thinking, that's not how this works. If we try that, we're all gonna die.
Right.
Like that's so, it's one of those things that's so simple and straightforward, but the journey to actually get there, not as easy as it sounds in hindsight.
No, and I think sometimes other entrepreneurs and business owners, like in the space, they're so far ahead that it's like, just figure out this, just figure out that, just figure that out. And it's like, you do have to figure some of those things out, but it isn't a matter of just figuring it out because it took me a long time to really figure out my stuff now. And I still have a long ways to go.
So let's so I love that because it's very true. So how can we shorten somebody's learning curve? Like if you were to tell them, if you were to give people one of my mentors once said to me, the best thing about you is you'll get on stage in front of 1,000 people and say, look, this is where I screwed everything up. Just don't do it that
Mm.
way. You'll be fine. Right. I'm a big fan of like, how do you shorten someone's learning curve? What would you recommend that they do and or not do in order to move through this, come out the other side with a few less scars and maybe a year sooner, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, that's literally what I do, right? Like my superpower is helping people figure out theirs. And for me, I use the Clifton Strengths Assessment, but I think you shorten it by really being honest with yourself about what you want, what you don't want. The first two questions I ask in the first coaching session with every single client is, what do you love? Absolutely love, 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 love doing. On the flip side, what do you hate doing? Things that you cannot handle doing. And we take the information from those two questions. And I, of course, because I'm the one who's like, I'm connecting the dots while they're
Right.
talking. Well, I start to point out, but can you see why you love talking on stage? Can you see how this strength shows up really, really well? And then also on the flip side, can you see how it's not showing up well? So there's that aspect again of going back to what we talked about a few seconds ago. Who are you and what level of self-awareness do you have? So I think you shorten the everything by understanding who you are. What level of self-awareness do you have? How do you operate? How are you going to be as a boss? Who's your first hire? Who should be your first hire? But do you know why you help clients? Because what you do on the front end is going to be the very thing that holds you up on the back end of your business. So let's talk about that. And so like figuring out first who you are via knowing what it is you're good at, what it is you are not, what it is that you're good at helps you on the front end, and how it holds you back on the back end, that will save you tons of time.
Right.
I worked with someone last week. It was our last coaching session. She's this amazing designer, all of these things, and she's been in business for years. And at the end of our session, she goes, I'm so glad I worked with you because I've been able to make decisions that I would have thought about for another year before making the final decision. All because she learned something about herself and she was like, oh my gosh, okay, this totally makes sense for me.
Well,
Boom.
and so there's another piece to this. I absolutely agree with you, first of all. And then there's a second piece to this. And I will screw up the quote, and the gentleman's name is like 17 syllables long, so I'm not even going to try it. You can look it up. But success is tied to the amount of truth you can accept about yourself without running away.
Ooh, I love that.
And it's not a new quote, and it's very true because there's an amount of courage it takes, like, and not a small amount.
Oh no.
There is an amount of courage it takes to be willing. And I think this is something that corporate has a hard time with because corporate is inherently competitive, right? There's
Mm,
100 people on the team, 5 of them get promoted, 1 of them gets promoted. It's just inherently competitive. And the entrepreneurial world is so much more collaborative because we don't have those limitations
yeah,
or anyone
yeah,
else in charge of anything. But that inherent competitive situation. And so if you come from a place of scarcity in any way, shape, or form, you're not going to be able to tap into the courage of looking at, what do I suck at? Right? What am I not good at?
yes. I did this really expensive, extensive, amazing coaching program in 2022. And my speaking coach, Michael Port, he said that entrepreneurship is personal development on steroids.
Absolutely. Your
And when he
business
said
cannot
that, I'm
outgrow
like,
you. I mean, it's that
exactly.
simple.
And I'm like, if I had known that at the very beginning, I would have given myself so much more grace
Or
and
just not
love.
even tried. Like,
Yeah, or that, exactly. But if you start to realize, oh, I'm not growing a business, I'm growing myself, you learn that you're showing up in a different way than you have never had to show up before in corporate.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I love this. I'm a big fan. I absolutely agree. I like the Strength Finders test. I was a big fan of DISC. The Some of the tests get so confusing and so many things to remember that they become almost difficult to actually use in the moment. I've been lucky enough to have enough experience where I find it all very comical to look at like, oh, that's why I do that crazy ass thing over and over and over again, right? I know there's mini versions of this, but I don't think you can on your own really connect the dots like the way that someone else can see
Oh yeah,
things
absolutely.
so plainly. So if people want to continue this conversation with you, and I highly, highly recommend they do, how do they find you? How do they get a hold of you?
So you can go to my website, AnnaYNelson.com, ANNAYNELSON.com. And I have a little contact form. Feel free to send me a note. If you want to email me directly, just go to hello@AnnaYNelson.com. It's me behind the hello. So Anna, you can be like, hello, Anna, it's me. That's, I think, the simplest to get in touch. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram, but I'm figuring out my own social media thing. So you can come find me there and friend me there. My handles are at Anna Y. Nelson, but do not be disappointed if I don't
Just
really
warning you
post.
now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm working on that.
Totally understand. Totally understand. Well, seriously, thank you for spending time with me and sharing your insights and your approach to all this. I absolutely love it. You're awesome. You're amazing. Thank you so, so much.
Oh my gosh, Erin, thank you so much for having me. This was very life-giving and a great way to spend part of my day. So this was
That's the
awesome.
goal. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I truly enjoy bringing these stories of success and inspiration to you. Please join us in our mission to empower entrepreneurs to be in charge of their businesses and in charge of their lives by sharing this with anyone you know who would benefit from our tactical and motivating advice, leaving us a review, and letting us know if there are any particular topics you would really appreciate hearing about. See you next time.